Hey everyone, welcome back to our coverage of the 160th anniversary of the Overland campaign. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this video. Go back and watch our other videos. We've made our way from the wilderness through to Spotsylvania to North Anna, and here we are at Cold Harbor, the climax of the Overland campaign, June 3rd, 1864. Ulysses S. Grant has gained ground here during attacks on June 1st, and he sees, I think, an opportunity. Richmond is roughly about 9 miles behind the camera. He's just as close to Richmond, even closer in some respects than George McClellan was 2 years earlier. And Grant, since May 12th and the fighting at the Muleshoe, has been looking for an opportunity. He's been looking for a moment to launch one more big assault and obliterate Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. And he sees that opportunity at 4:30 a.m. on June 3rd, 1864. And to talk more about that fighting, I'm here with our good friend Mike Gorman from the Richmond National Battlefield. Mike, take it away.
So I'm Ranger Mike Gorman for the Richmond National Battlefield Park. And one of the cool things about working for a place like this is it's not just a battlefield, but it's a place to talk about how things are planned and how things kind of go awry. And this is a great place to check that out, because not just here at Cold Harbor with all the incredible earthworks that survive, it's really where these stories live. And these stories that come down to us, well, quite frankly, they can be a little inflated. We'll get to some of that in just a second, but I want to sort of set the table for what's going on here in 1864. This is the summer. This has been the awful months of May with the wilderness, Spotsylvania, North Anna, Totopotomy Creek, and Cold Harbor now coming up. But it's also an election summer. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln is trying to get reelected on the premise that we're going to restore the Union. And the Democrats are feeling the wind at their backs that the war is not being won. And during that month of May, the wilderness, Spotsylvania, North Anna, and so on, those casualties are piling up. And that sentiment is just washing through the press in the North, that it's not getting done. When is it going to end? But all eyes are on the Army of the Potomac as they approach closer and closer to Richmond. 10 miles just outside the capital city. So everybody is watching. Everybody knows that whatever's going to happen here is going to be big, and it's probably going to be the Big E, the one that finally cracks Lee's army and captures Richmond. So when I say all eyes are right here, everything's riding on it. The election, these soldiers' service. Remember, they all signed 3-year enlistment papers back in the summer of 1861. It's the summer of 1864. They're about to go home, and what could be better than capping off your 3 years of service with the final victory over the Army of Northern Virginia? So there's some stakes here at Cold Harbor. What kind of America are we going to have? How's the war going to end? It's all coming to a point right here. Now, when we think about Cold Harbor, it often comes down to us as just one event. People blow off what happened on May 30th, May 31st, and so on, June 1st, to get to the climactic assault of June 3rd. I don't think that's fair. When we look at a battle, we need to take it in its totality. We don't just look at one day at Gettysburg or one day at the Wilderness or so on. We look at the whole thing. But Cold Harbor has been really mythologized into this, you've heard some of the myths, I'm sure. 7,000 casualties in 30 minutes, Grant's greatest regret, men pinning their names to the back of their uniforms because they knew they were being sent to certain death. This is not fair to the men that fought here. This is not fair to their memory, and certainly not fair to what actually happened. And that's a good reason to have a park, to talk about some of these things. What actually did happen? And how is that different from what the commander planned? What did the commander plan? Well, we all know who he is. It's Ulysses S. Grant. And he's in charge of all the Union armies, not just here. In fact, that's kind of a problem here at Cold Harbor, because the Army had a commander, George Meade. That's right. The commander at Gettysburg, he's still in command, never was fired. But his boss, Grant, is traveling along with him. Now, put yourself in his shoes. How does it feel if your boss is hanging over your shoulder everywhere you go? Does he feel like he's really in charge? If you read his letters to his wife, he does not feel like he's in charge. He's just vomiting every night these deep, dark emotions about how he feels about Grant, even sometimes overriding what he'd said. Always, with him, always second-guessing him, always sort of really taking the credit. And admittedly, the press was kind of freezing Meade out for some of the actions he'd taken against one reporter in particular. But he complained to his wife, a great example of this, complained to his wife that when the news is good, it's news from Grant's army all over the newspapers. And when the news was bad, it's news from Meade's army. So you can kind of get a sense about how he felt. But this poisonous command relationship has been, well, sort of working during the Overland campaign, but it's really boiling up here as the armies get closer and closer to that dusty crossroads just a mile behind me called Cold Harbor. Meade is increasingly being pushed to the side, and Grant is increasingly issuing direct orders over Meade's head. And I think Meade was probably on some fundamental level going, well, okay, if that's what it takes to win, all right. But you really see this in the lead up to the big June 3rd assault. Now let's just pause for a second to recall that everywhere the Union Army had found the Confederates, at the crossroads on May 31st, they had pushed the Confederates. They had driven them out of earthworks. They're doing it every day, everywhere they found them. At the crossroads on May 31st and June 1st, on the night of June 1st, when 2 Union corps attacked that Confederate line, they broke it. They broke it, and the Confederates fell back to this position. Everywhere they looked, they saw victory. It does not look like impending doom. It does not look like impending failure. It looks like impending victory. So a lot of people will come and they'll say, why? Why did Grant not know? Why did he order this assault? What has he seen that should stop him? What has he seen that was, oh, it's different now, we better hold off? I don't think he's seen a thing like that. He's seen the opposite. He's seen victory every step of the way. And let's just be honest here, the Republican convention is getting ready to meet in Baltimore to maybe renominate Lincoln. What could be better than news of that final victory landing right as they gavelled the convention to order? I mean, come on. It's all here. So sure, after the incredible success on June 1st, right down at the creek bottom over there, the orders go out to attack in the morning of June 2nd. That's right, not 3rd, 2nd. But there's a big problem. The entire army is not here. Hancock's 2nd Corps is about 15 miles that way up at Totopotomoy Creek. He gets orders the night of June 1st to move. And he's got to move all the way from 15 miles that way, all the way around, down through the crossroads to take up a position on the other side of the road. And he gets those orders at 8:30 p.m. It's going to be a night march. This is the worst thing you can imagine. And then in, unfortunately, too common circumstances that you've probably felt before, somebody showed up, a staff officer from Meade, and said, I know a shortcut. And yes, indeed, they got lost. And that resulted in not being in position on the morning of June 2nd to attack. In fact, as they started to roll up, I mean, they'd been marching all night long. The dust and the heat was just literally choking men. They looked like walking dead, just zombies rolling up. There's no way this attack can happen on June 2nd. And so the general order was, no attack on June 2nd. We're postponing it to June 3rd. Now, some people will tell you that that lull gave the Confederates all the time they needed to perfect their lines and make them impregnable, such that this attack, when it came, would be bound to fail. I do not believe that. There are many parts of the battlefield I can show you where they built this line incredibly poorly, in poor places, such that they would have been imminently pregnable. Is that even a word? The point being is that this line that's established is not laid out by engineers. It's not laid out by the generals. It's laid out by the soldiers themselves who were responding to what they found on the ground and digging in wherever they felt safe. That's what these represent. Security blankets for the soldiers. During an attack, it's not going to help you because those that are attacking you can't stop the fire anyway. So whether you're behind these earthworks or not doesn't matter during a battle. I know that's blowing some people's minds as they hear that, but it's true. Both commanders hated them. They hated the fact that when soldiers got in trenches, they tended not to leave them, and they knew exactly where the enemy would be, in a line, behind a trench. So it's not an ideal situation for the Confederates. Their back is to the Chickahominy River. They've been driven every step of the way, and now the entire Union Army is arrayed in a 7-mile front across their front with about 50,000 men to guard it, and orders are cut by Grant to attack in the morning of June 3rd. Everybody into the pool. This will be the largest assault the Union Army has ever made, hands down, if it happened. Yep. 5 Union Corps were ordered by Grant, the commander of all U.S. armies. He issues a general order. Attack at 4:30 in the morning. Make reconnaissances in front of your lines. During the day on June 2nd, as best we can tell, only one of the Corps commanders did that. Only one. Baldy Smith actually went out in front of his lines and reconnoitered to see what the Confederates that he was facing were up against. Well, the other 4 Corps commanders, best we can tell, did not do that. Those orders that are cut by the highest level to attack at 4:30 in the morning seem to have just been passed on by Meade, meaning that Grant says attack at 4:30 in the morning, and Meade, rather than going around to the various Corps commanders and saying, okay, I've got this order to attack. That means all 5 of you, meet each other if you haven't, are now going to go forward together. You're going to tie in your flanks. There'll be a signal gun fired, whatever he's going to say. But he's going to make that general order specific. And for reasons that I cannot explain, that is never done. So you can imagine these Corps commanders, 5 of them, all along this 7-mile front, including a brand new one in the form of Horatio Wright, who has just been promoted after Sedgwick was killed at Spotsylvania. And Baldy Smith, who's brand new to the Army. He'd been down with the Army of the James and brought here specifically for this battle. Attack at 4:30. Is that an actual, did we get that order? I haven't heard anything from Meade. Mass confusion is reigning. Again, that poisonous command relationship between Meade and Grant is now affecting the Corps commanders. Some of the division commanders never even get the order. Some of the brigade commanders never even heard it. So on the morning of June 3rd, when this massive Union assault is supposed to be going forward, most of the Army, they're not moving at all. Only isolated pockets go forward. Right over there, the 2nd Corps under Hancock, remember those walking dead that had to do that night march from Totopotomoy Creek? They go forward. And you can imagine their flank right there on that road, completely exposed, because rookie Corps Commander Horatio Wright does not push forward with them. They are not tied in at all. So one of the dirty little secrets of this park is that there is no attack made in this field on June 3rd. That is the tragedy of Cold Harbor. With nothing else to fire at, the Confederates right behind me are turning and firing right down the flank of the 2nd Corps. Insane casualties took place right across that field on the other side of the road, where the 8th New York Heavy Artillery suffered over 500 casualties just in that field. Nothing in this field, but north of here, the 18th Corps, Baldy Smith's Army of the James, 18th Corps. They kind of funneled themselves into a little ravine, and the Confederates had entrenched on opposite sides like a V. And so as they moved forward, the best historian of this battle described it as a pencil going into a sharpener. Their casualties were fantastic. North of here, the 5th and the 9th Corps do not attack until the afternoon. And there too is one of the myths of Cold Harbor, this bloody affair that happens in a very compressed amount of time. I'm sure you've heard something like 7,000 casualties in 30 minutes, or 8 minutes, or 6 minutes, or pick your compressed amount of time. But believe me when I tell you, the first assaults, those that are actually moving forward on June 3rd, they start at 4:30 in the morning. But they're still going and trickling in and out, off and on, until about 12:30. So we can just throw that one right away. But it's something that we cling to, and I guarantee you it's a myth that dies hard. As much work as I've done and other historians have done to swat away these nonsensical bits of mythology, I guarantee you there will be a park ranger working here 100 years from now, when I'm long in my grave, still dealing with this persistent myth, still dealing with this overstatement of what happened here. Imagining, as people do when they come in, that there is this big assault that could have all gone forward at once, and did, but it failed miserably because the Confederates were so dug in. And you've already started to see how this wasn't the case. And so for those that did attack, yes, the affair was very compressed in time, and it resulted in absolutely nothing. But of the 5 Union Corps that were supposed to attack here at Cold Harbor, being generous, only about 2.5 did. So there goes any sense of this massive Union assault. It is not the largest assault of the war. It does not result in the most casualties. It's not even the bloodiest day of the entire campaign. When you've got 20,000 casualties at the Wilderness in 2 days, the maybe 6,000 or 5,000 Confederates, or excuse me, 5,000 Federal soldiers that fell here at Cold Harbor pales by comparison. So why do we keep clinging to this? Remember what I told you, all eyes are right here. It has to be the biggest, it has to be the most. It's gonna be the final battle. But when it's not, it still has to be the biggest, the worst, the most, the bloodiest, the most awful thing you could possibly imagine, because now we didn't capture Richmond and the war's just gonna go on. It's gonna go on and on and on. It's gonna go on through the election. Oh my God, it's never gonna stop. And if you're a Democrat in the North who wants to end the war, this is your big bludgeon against Lincoln and Grant, who, by the way, is going to continue to hear this when he runs for president. So you can start to see how this story, like a fish story, starts to grow. And who are we not talking about when we tell those stories? We're not talking about the soldiers. We're not talking about the men who actually fought here, who bravely went forward, or didn't, or never got the order. And we're putting motivations and ideas in their heads and mouths that weren't there, like there's some kind of mutiny or some kind of mass revolt. That's nonsense. Think about what you're saying when you say that. You're saying the U.S. Army, from the very bottom to the very top, performed a mass mutiny. That's absurd. You're ignoring what actually happened to say that. I can't do that. These soldiers deserve better. So you won't find me passing on those myths. Oh, if you'd come at the very beginning of my career, you would have heard that. But as I grew it as an historian and started to look at the actual accounts of what took place here, that changed me. When I started to go out on the grounds and walk around and see where these men fought, that changed me. And that made me a better historian, and that made me a better park ranger. And that's what I hope to give to you when you come out here and study June 3rd, is not the myth, is not the story, but let's talk about that incredible story. It's enough without the nonsense. It's enough without the stories. They earned it. They deserve it. And that's what we do here.
Thanks, Mike. Now, we're approaching the anniversary. I know you all have some plans.
Oh, yes.
Please share with us what you all have going on down here.
Absolutely. Well, one of the great things about working out here is every year we get to commemorate the battle close to the actual anniversary. And this year is no different. The very first weekend of June, we'll be having our anniversary program. In fact, I'll be doing two major tours out here, one for the 18th Corps attack, just north of where we are, and on newly preserved ground, thank you American Battlefield Trust, the 2nd Corps attack as well. So if you come out that day, you'll find tours throughout the day, cannon firing, infantry demonstrations, that kind of thing. It's really going to be a great way to understand and approach this battle.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Now, again, everyone come down here for the anniversary. Come out to all these battlefields that we've visited over the course of this series. Come see land that you, as members of the American Battlefield Trust, have preserved, especially here at Cold Harbor Tavern, at just across from the Cold Harbor Visitor Center, where you can explore the 2nd Corps attack with Mike during the anniversary. Also, other land that we've preserved around Richmond, the Deep Bottoms, Glendale, Newmarket Heights. Now, for Sarah K. Biley behind the camera, Chris White, Chris Mikowski, Andy Polton doing the editing, Mike Gorman, I'm Dan Davis. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting battlefield preservation.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. To stay up to date on all the latest and coolest videos, please subscribe to the Trust's YouTube channel. Preserve, educate, inspire.